Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Vixen Voice. In fact, this is our final episode of the year. I just want to start by thanking all of you listeners. It has been an amazing ride since August. Bringing this podcast to you has become my absolute favorite activity, and if you've been listening, you also have met the amazing people that we've had on the show. You've gotten to know them, and you probably know why I love it so much. So just want to thank everyone listening for your loyalty, your feedback, reaching out. Please continue to do that. We love to hear from you. Also, if you're listening to this episode on Apple or Spotify, this full episode will be available on YouTube. Again, it's our last episode of the year, and it's kind of fun when we have panels if you get to see everyone's face. So go find us at Vixen Gathering on YouTube and give us your feedback then. And today we're going to be talking about our goal settings, how we go about it, what our goals are for 2024, and also what our personal resolutions are. So again, we'd love to hear from you. Please join the conversation and share with us what's going on in your world and what you're looking forward to in 2024. So today is fun. As you know, in the panels, I like to invite guests back. So we have some of my favorite guests who I met, two of them through podcasting this year. So I can't tell you what a rich world it is. So Lindsay Weiss, glad to have you back. Lindsay is a Facebook group strategist and a business coach, and she was on here talking about the power of Facebook. So Lindsay, remind us, how many people are on Facebook?
There are 1.8 billion that are using Facebook groups.
I love it. That's when I stole that from you, and it's one of my favorite news statistics. So if you are not harnessing the power of Facebook, go listen to Lindsay's episode and learn how you can get started. And today she'll share with you how she coaches traditionally women to success on Facebook groups, but men, there's room for you too. So if you're listening and you're curious, definitely keep that in mind. Go check out that episode and we'll share Lindsay's information with you. My other podcast guest friend is Megan Smiley. So Megan, welcome.
Thank you.
And so you will hear from Megan in January. Stay tuned, where we are talking about her holistic career coaching. I also had the honor of being a guest on Megan's podcast, The Lawyer's Escape Pod, so that was super fun. And as two former lawyers who like to enjoy our lives and realized we weren't best suited to be lawyers, we quickly became friends and have stayed in touch. So excited to have you back on, Megan. Welcome.
Thank you. It's always fun to be chatting with you.
I love it. And before I go to Matt, Lindsay, you have a podcast as well. What's the name of your podcast?
Yeah, my podcast is called Redefine Hustle.
Love it. Love it. So, and we've been chatting about, I might be guesting there, so we will shoot that to you when that time is there. That's my subtle nudge. Anyway, so welcome. And last but definitely not least is my dear friend and my business coach for the Vixen Gathering, Matt Curry. Matt is the founder of Giant Results, and as I mentioned, we met each other in actually an energy coaching group years ago, and we have become great friends. Not only does he business coach me, but we are in strategic coach together. So we get to see each other every quarter where we are not coaching, we are being coached. So Matt, welcome.
Thank you, April. Glad to be back.
Awesome. Glad to have you back. You were officially the first man to appear on the Vixen Voice. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do wear it as a badge of honor.
We'll send you a trophy, don't worry. we want to get you an award out there. So today we're coming to you live to talk about goal setting, and we're going to have a very vulnerable and open conversation because you have 4 coaches on here. So we want to talk about if we practice what we preach, what we help our clients to do, what our evolution of goal setting has been. I will share with you, Matt knows this, we were just at Strategic Coach together, and we had to go out and do, in 5 areas of life, a goal for 10 years out, then back it into 5 years, 3 years, and 1 year. And I was like, Matt, I can't do this. He knows when I freeze, right? I hate thinking that far out into the future. It's just a challenge for me. And he was like, you can do this. And sure enough, within 10 minutes, I had the whole darn thing filled out. So be careful of these mental limits that we put on ourselves, right? I don't know what my block is. I think because I think in today's world, it's crazy to think 10 years out because who knows what the world's going to look like in 10 years. I think that's a little bit of my block. But going through the exercise was so valuable to me because one of my biggest goals is impacting millions of women and helping them to change their life and live a better life. And when I wrote that down, it re-energized me for what I do. So for me, I find goal setting actually re-energizes me for the day to day and gets me excited about things. So Megan, Matt, or Lindsay, who wants to hop in and share what value you might... Well, let me ask you this. We'll start with Megan to keep us in order, and then we'll chat. Number one, what value do you find in goal setting, and maybe what part of goal setting do you find challenging, if not all of it?
Yeah. I totally identify with your sort of resistance. I'll be dead honest. I sometimes do find myself having resistance to too much specificity in goal setting. And I think for me, why that comes up is one of my top values is freedom. And so sometimes I don't like obligations and rules being applied to me, even when it's in service of my own personal goals. So I have to do some sort of mindset work on myself to embrace setting the specific goals. Because I do find that it, like you said, I think there is a lot of value in naming and owning what you want to set as a goal. But I think when it comes, and I'm perfectly capable of doing it, but I have to work through the resistance on doing sort of, Matt may get into more of this, but I would call it sort of the left brain strategic goals, the kind of smart goals and the very, nitty gritty. Those I really, I do have to force myself a little bit to do them, but I think they're really valuable. Whereas the sort of visioning out of a year from now or 5 years, I swim in that. That I love. Yeah. So I really enjoy sitting in the energy of what happens when I achieve my goals. That part I find easier.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I have a resistance to getting very specific too, but the crazy thing is I'm really good at it. And I think Matt will tell you this. Once he pushes me to do it, it's done like this, and it's what I help my clients do and what I push them to do. So it's so interesting. It's almost like, if you're trying to do a habit to get fit and you want to work out 45 minutes every day, well, one day if you went for 15 minutes instead of skipping, it's still more powerful, right? Just doing it. And so sometimes just pushing through to do things, you really surprise yourself. So if you're listening and you have this resistance, we hear you, we feel you. I too am driven by freedom, Megan. I never even thought about that, but that might be part of my resistance. But there is value in pushing through. So I'm going to go to Lindsay next, and we'll ask the same two questions. And then Matt, we'll have you share, and maybe you can coach us because this is what you do. This is your wheelhouse, right? I mean, every quarter, Matt has us break down our goals for the quarter. We have our 1 year and 3 year vision we're working off of, right? So, Lindsay, first question is, what value do you find in goal setting? And the second question is, what do you find challenging, or maybe where do you have a hard time?
So, for me, value in goal setting for me is, I do love it. I love the idea. I love the, like Megan said, the getting in the energy of getting to the goal. And I'm a big dreamer. So for me, it's when I get asked this question, it's well, I want it all. All of it. So that's where I would say overwhelmed at the same time, because I'm okay, but I need to I guess I need to take stepping stones, or maybe I don't know. So that's where it becomes a bit of a challenge for me, is I don't put a limit on what I would love, because I'm just a big dreamer. And so therefore, when it comes to breaking things down, I'm like, okay, how do we do this in a way that I guess I'm not limiting myself, but I'm also like being realistic with what this could look like for me.
I will share it takes practice because I had the same challenge and I continuously have that same challenge. And so we'll let Matt hop in here. So first, Matt, just if you'll answer for us what value you find and what you find difficult personally, and then maybe you could coach us up a little bit on the challenges we shared.
Yeah, I mean, for me, with goal setting, it's just like, there's, for me, the long story short is like, it's hard to get committed to the year for the first time. Like, when you sit there and start from scratch, hey, you have New Year's resolutions, but in the end of the day, if you're trying to get your arms around what kind of year you want to have, I think it's really intimidating. And so even when I started off coaching and when I sold my business and became a business coach, those goals were still, I wouldn't say as solidified as I would have liked because I wasn't clear on what the journey looked like because I was so new into it. So one thing is like, I feel like you need this commitment to it, but at the same time, give yourself grace because you're learning to take steps, if that makes sense. And so, like, as you know, to answer your second question, because like what I coach, when I'm with businesses, it's like I get this leadership team to all commit to where they want to be in 10 years. They call it a big, hairy, audacious goal. It could be longer, it could be shorter. And that provides a little clarity. And then additionally, you get some clarity painting a picture of what 3 years looks like. But you're not keeping score against that 3 year. It's just painting a picture of what you want to look like. And then nailing it down. All right, what's going to be a great year for us as a business? And then, all right, what has to happen over the next 90 days? Now, you get the benefit of working with a team on that, but it's still hard to do it by yourself. I think, like, hey, I'm going to sit down January 1st and I'm going to type up what my goals are. I think for me, and I hope I'm not jumping ahead a little bit here, but you got to kind of give yourself some baby steps to get started, if that makes sense, as a person.
I agree with that because Matt coached my team in my former business that I sold, and now we're in the first year of Vixen Gathering, and it took us a bit to get good goals in place, right? It is a practice with the team, and I saw this with my mastermind group because we set 90-day, I was just having them do 90-day focus to get them used to it, like, 3 things. And then this last meeting of the year, we did our 3-year, 1 year, and then broke it into first quarter. And, it was third quarter together before they even set decent goals, right? That had some specificity. And fourth quarter, they were so proud of the work they'd accomplished. But it wasn't like overnight they could do it. And so that's the challenge too, in being a coach, because I'll let people sign up for my mastermind for 90 days because most people, just have a hard time committing to a year these days, but you don't really get the goods in 90 days. It really takes a year or so. Exactly. But it's a great way for people to try things out and see if it's right for them and then continue.
For sure.
So it's interesting having experienced it with my team and then also with my clients that it really is like a muscle. You have to do your reps learning how to do good goal setting.
Oh my gosh, it's total reps. Because I actually like it when I start with a client and I kind of let them go a little bit picking what they're going to be because I actually want them to learn from the failure of not getting them all done because they usually choose to do too much. And so it's like the model of choosing big things but obsessing over those big things, but less of them is actually the way to go for getting, the multiplier effect you want to have in your life. And so that's the big key is learning to write goals from maybe not hitting your goals before.
Yeah, I tend to set too many, and so the pain of it, I think we got it right the last quarter.
Yes, you did. I agree.
So, Lindsay, question for you. When you say you want too much, is it too many goals, or is the goal set, or is it how high you've set the goal? Like, what's the distinction when you say it?
For me, it's definitely how high I've said it, because I'm like, why would you limit yourself?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point in the limit? But then it's like, okay, but you got to start somewhere and we've got to like work our way up, I assume. But there's a lot of noise out in the world out there on social media that makes you think, or maybe I should go for something big because some people do it quicker. And so then I'm like, oh, I don't know about this part of it.
No, I feel you, and personally, I tend to set very high goals, and my thought always was, okay, if I don't hit it, but I hit right below, that's still a darn good year. Yeah. The challenge is now that I have a team, being the leader of the team, you want them to have the fulfillment of hitting goals, right? So Matt knows when we set our goals for 2024, I already said, hey, if this were just me, these would be higher. So just know I'm probably going to be pushing you guys all year to exceed what we've set, right? So I totally feel you. So I think it does make a difference if you're setting the goals for yourself and how your mentality is, and if you have a team. I also think there's a difference when you have accountability. Like I have my coach who's going to be like, hey guys, you only hit 50% of your goals this quarter, which was us, third quarter. We only hit 50%, right? So we were very careful in crafting the fourth quarter goals for this year because we don't want to be at 50% again. We want to accomplish more than that, right? So if you're listening and you are a solopreneur, you have 4 coaches here who all can help with goal setting. You don't even have to just, we're not just pushing one of us, but think about it. You might want that accountability so that you get better at the skill set. And again, listen to the episode prior to this. It talks about goal setting, and listen to this one and see what tips you can pick up. So Megan, how about you? Do you think you set goals too high or too many, or?
I think I have come to learn the lesson of I would say too high, not too many, has been my sort of traditional path. And it can be very demoralizing, right? So I've sort of learned the lesson that momentum comes with setting goals that you can reasonably achieve, stretch them, but reasonably achieve. But also being very careful about what kind of goals you're setting and making sure that they're actually your goals. Because here's what I don't meet. Yes. Goals that feel arbitrary to me. Like goals I should meet. Those are not good goals for me. So I find that I hit more of my targets when I feel deeply sort of aligned with the goal, as opposed to it feeling imposed on me or out of alignment in some way. So just trying to have both the sort of substance and the level of the goal be the right fit.
Yeah, and I think, I actually had a great interview with Becky Kohlberg, so y'all can look up that episode and listen, and she talked about, learning the gap. Like, there's always a gap between your goal and where you are, like your ideal, and what she does is writes down all the things she would have to give up or do to, like, close that gap, right? So she was like, I wanted to be this tiny, super fit woman, like this, like ideal. She was like, but I couldn't eat Swedish fish that I love. I couldn't drink wine that I love. It meant less time with my kids, more time in the gym. And so, at some points, like right now, I'm very focused on getting back in shape. So I'm willing to sacrifice a lot to get back in shape, but that's important to me. So I do think just thinking, okay, to hit this goal, what's going to have to happen? And am I committed to taking that action that's going to make that happen? And if you're not, maybe you need to rethink your goal because you are going to fail on it. Because I gave myself a pass on fitness this year, all the crazy change in my life. I mean, I wanted to do it, but I just knew it would be I should be doing this, not, okay, it's time. And now I've hit a critical point where I'm like, okay, it's freaking time. Come hell or high water, this is going to happen, right? So, I feel like I could set an aggressive fitness goal for first quarter and I would probably meet it. But my 2023 self never would have hit that goal. I just knew it wasn't time. So, Matt, what kind of guidance can you give when it comes to thinking about goals in that way? I know Matt has this great way he has us break down like mini deadlines, obstacles, what's needed, etc. to reach our goal, which is very enlightening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so what we're using together is like a rock planner for when we're together. And basically what it is, it's the goal. And the goal is to, all right, get into shape. Okay, what are the action items to getting in shape? So for me, getting in shape. I don't know if you guys are the same or not, but like I can get myself to do cardio, but I can't get myself to do lifting. I don't naturally like to lift. So I have a trainer that helps me with the lifting side, you know, and that kind of thing. And we set goals there. And then I can get myself out running with generally on my own. But my point is that you kind of break it down into smaller bits and by when, so that you can really feel it also. And the other thing I think has been really helpful in goal setting, and this is more on the personal side, but like getting into shape, like April knew this, but I was signed up for a really big hike last summer. It ended up getting postponed because of weather, but I was in this really long hike, and having this giant hike ahead of me, like totally drove me to get into shape. Like having this end goal that I'm going to go do, like it wasn't a run, it was a hike, but still is, you know, down in the Grand Canyon. And so, you know, I had to get really prepped. And unfortunately, we'll hopefully do it this summer, but the thing is that I never been motivated by something more than having this outcome based. You know, some people you'll hear were like, hey, I signed up for a race in September trying to get ready to run a half marathon. I always found that was really impactful. I don't know, to me.
I agree. The best shape of my life is when I did rim to rim at Grand Canyon, and I was doing it with 20 other people, and I was the youngest in the group. They were all retired, and I was 35, so I was not going to be embarrassed on that day and not get out of the canyon. So, yeah, no, that works for me too, but it doesn't work for everybody, and that's why, you know, it's really important to know yourself. I mean, my Colby assessment, I'm a 9 quick start, and for quick starts, deadlines work, right? Like we kind of need that end goal, that bigger vision, and then we'll go do it. So, really digging into who you are, and if you're setting team goals, who your team is, and what's important to them, and what they can get behind. So, I shared that fitness is, well, actually, so my personal focus first quarter, I call it, health, wealth, and home. So, getting my health back in shape. I had a year where I didn't really have to worry about money. It was a nice situation, but I have a new business, so I would like cash flow the business. I kind of like some stability in my financial life, so that's what I mean by wealth, right? Like I want a little more predictability. So first quarter, I'm focused on that. My health, I actually would like to lose at least 30 pounds next year and get back in shape. So that's probably 10 pounds first quarter, if not 15. And then my third one is home, because my lease is up in Nashville March 5th. And, you know, I kind of just moved here because I wanted more greenery in a small city. So I got to decide if I'm staying here or moving somewhere else, or if I'm going to be a nomad for a while, which is also appealing to me. So that's like my focus first quarter. I know those are incredibly important parts of my life to kind of get restabilized. And so I set goals to help get me back on track. How about y'all? What are you focused on, maybe more on the personal side of your life going into 2024?
Fitness is also on my list. I find that I can be like, I almost like, I'll be great for a quarter, and then I'm like, oh, I'm doing so well, and I let go of the reins. So I'm at the point of having to recommit again. And I'd be curious what Matt's thoughts are on this. Sometimes I find it easier to focus on a process goal rather than an end result goal, because, and actually the end result is important in this case to me, but I think it's the habit that I have. In this particular case, it's really a question of developing and sort of entrenching a habit. So even if it's just, okay, you got up and, you know, went to the gym 3 times this week, even if you went for 10 minutes, just like start there and build the habit and the process, because with the idea that sort of the ultimate end goal will flow from that. Although, you know, I think it depends on what kind of goal you're setting, whether that kind of makes sense to focus on or not. I think with wellness, it may more so. I also have a goal of having more fun and seeing more of my friends, to be honest.
I love it.
That one's easier.
Just to chime in here, Megan. So, no, habits is everything. So habits of like, so when I was training for my hike, I was recording how many steps I took each day, and then what my workout was, and then my sleep. And so it's kind of making sure, like, every week turning towards, okay, I'm going to hit this many steps per week, whether I broke it out to what day. So no, that's what's so interesting. So April and I are working together, and even though we're writing outcome-based goals, we're still developing habits on how to get there, because every week they meet working on those goals, and it's the same for us personally. So no, I mean, absolutely, it's more systems than goals is really the success, really, in my 2 cents. All the things that
and the
I've seen.
systems give you quick wins too. I know when I said, okay, I'm going to drink 100 ounces a day, and I had like my little check marks I give myself every day that I drink 100 ounces of water, and you get that like quick win every day, and it's leading up to the bigger habit. So I think you have to understand what gives you energy and motivates you. Lindsay, how about you? What are you looking to do personally in 2024?
I also have a health goal, and it's more hormone focused, but
Nice.
fitness is a mixture of that. I went through a big home renovation, and I believe it has affected my cortisol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Being a part of that. So getting that under control in terms of health. 'Cause kind of like you, I really let myself focus on new business this year. And now it's like, okay, we've kind of got that stable, but also when it comes to that, really mapping out a full offer suite in the business. It's like developing. So that's a mixture. And then of course, family, fun, traveling, things like that are, they're not like fully clear, although my husband is like, could you tell me where you want to go next year? So I have it down, because we have a bunch of ideas. So those are like the big, goals for me.
So I love it. So I hear traveling from you, like more family and traveling. And I hear more friends and fun from you, Megan. So are you going to systematize these things? Because as you probably know, I have joy on my calendar, which often is spending time with friends. And so if I look forward to the week and there's no pink on my calendar, it means I have no joy planned. So I then on Sunday will make plans for joy that week. So how do you guys keep yourself accountable or on track for like these kind of softer goals, let's say more personal?
I use my calendar a lot. I mean, my calendars are very much, strategic coach, free days, focus days, and buffer days. And just for clarity, a free day is just a completely day, of non-work. And then a focus day is the day you're earning money by working. And then a buffer day is your day of working, but you're working on projects. And so, by categorizing that way, and then I'm fortunate enough to have some control of my time and my coaching. So I actually block days well in advance. Like my whole 2024 vacation calendar is already put there. Now there might be some small things that pop in that we may not go there, or anywhere, but it would just lead to, okay, I'm going to do a 3-day weekend because I don't have a session or whatever. We'll do that. But I sat with my wife. I literally put my, I put my calendar up on the TV screen so she can see it. Okay, this is what I'm thinking. Now, we haven't necessarily committed to trips to each of those time periods, but at least we've blocked out time knowing, okay, what can we do to go drive? Because we have a dog that doesn't like being left at home. And so, like, what kind of trip can we do with our little dog and stuff like that, So.
I love that. I have to share, I'm so proud of myself because I have all of 2024 planned out as well. Now, it might switch, but I mean, first quarter is locked and loaded, but 2024, I have my vacation weeks on there. I have when I'm recording podcasts, basically what activities are happening each day. And, Matt and I share an energy coach, and, back in 2021, 2022, I realized he would have his whole year, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could never do that. Here I am saying never, and I have it. Sometimes it just becomes necessity because there is freedom in planning, right? So now when I have those vacations, I have freedom. And if something comes up that's a higher priority, I can shift the calendar, but at least I kind of generally know what's going on and when I'm available for different things. So that was really interesting. I'll let y'all know after the year how well I stuck to it. That's a whole nother thing.
That is another thing for April.
But I like to say I did a podcast interview where we were talking about joy in life, and she was like, how did you focus on this? And when people talk about money mindset, right? We talk about how a billionaire can lose all their money and they'll be a billionaire again pretty quickly because that's like where their mindset is. I've always had a high mindset for happiness or joy. So often, I think, Megan, you're similar because I know we both have 7s in our print to enjoy life, right? So often I will preempt something because something will bring me more fulfillment, happiness, or joy. And it's not always just frivolous joy. Sometimes it's like, oh, I want to take on this project, or this client because it's going to bring me a lot of joy. So let me shift so I can make that happen. So like Matt said, we have to give ourselves grace. But Lindsay, you're talking about traveling. Do you systematize that at all? And same question for you, Megan, with having more fun with friends. Like, how are you ladies going to make this happen?
So my husband would absolutely love me to nail it down now. This past year, he works from the house but his main office is in Florida. We're in Arizona. And I was like, yeah, we're going to take the kids and they're going to see your office over in Florida and we're going to go to the beach and all the things. And then we got to May and I had never booked flights. I didn't do any of it. And he was like, we're not going to do that because looking at the schedule and just everything. So for me, I think I need to, as we're talking through this, really, because he's asking, like, where are we going for summer vacation? And I'm like, it's December. I don't know, and we have options. And I honestly, probably just in having this conversation, I've been writing some things down about like, hey, don't forget, all the family wants to go to Destin this summer. Like, make a note and get on it. So it's planned. Because what I learned last year is we ended up just taking a road trip up to Big Bear Lake in California because it was simple. It was like, okay, we can just do this last minute. I was doing everything last minute last year.
Yeah.
In terms of like trips and fun, I was not planning that stuff out. Because I was so focused on building the new business, I think. That could be why even coming up on the holiday is feeling like it's coming really fast. On me, but in having this conversation, like I do have places that I want to go and places I want to go by, whether it's, him and me or the whole family or what that looks like. And so as we're talking through this, I'm like, yeah, I'm totally writing this out and we'll tell him these are the places, these are the dates. And then kind of from there, I have a lot, like, we could go here, here, and he'd be like, okay, so which, there's a lot going on, as well. So yeah, I would guess that's me putting it in a system, just kind of like mapping it out.
So I think you should make the list, put it in a box, wrap it, and put it under the tree for him.
I should. He would love that.
You could be like, that's your gift, babe. Just kidding. Hopefully you'll get him something else. Unless he doesn't care.
We're those types that it's like, just go get what you want and then put it on the tree.
I like being taken shopping. I think because I grew up, like, we would shop for fun, and so I still, like, it's like, it's one of my, like, moments that I'm like, oh, I'm in my happy place. Cool. I'm shopping and you're paying? Awesome. What's better than this, right? That's like the best thing ever.
Yes.
And Megan, how about you? Systematizing, seeing friends and having fun.
So last year, at the beginning of the year, I've moved around a lot in my adult life. So many of my very, very dear friends live nowhere near me. And I've historically not been a phone person. So I said, I'm really losing a lot by holding on to this identity of not being a phone person. So I said, I'm going to, take out, identify, 5 to 10 of like the dearest people in my life that I feel like I'm underconnected to, and schedule out like quarterly calls with them. So I've been doing that, and last quarter kind of got away from me, but I want to recommit to that. I also want to, add in, I'm pretty good at doing sort of weekend trips with different groups of friends, and that fell off for a number of reasons, in the last couple of years, but recommit to maybe a quarterly weekend with friends somewhere, and just really try and nail it. Sometimes it's herding cats with, getting friends together with all of everybody's life commitments, but that's actually something I'm good at, and lean into that and just, get everyone in line. But I have to take the leadership to make it happen, I think is what I'm remembering.
I love it. It's so funny that you're saying this because it's coming back to me. I have everything. Matt and I were just at the strategic coach last week, so it's still here on my desk. So I did have my checklist out of action items, but I need to go back through and review. And in my 10-year plan, part of it is relationships, right? So my goal for this year, because I'm similar to you, I recently moved away from all my friends, and I have friends all over. And one of my goals for this year was to get 5 of my good friends to take a birthday trip with me. I thought that would be really fun. So, I've already told 2 of them, can you block this time on your calendar? I'll get back to you with what we're doing. And then
your birthday must not be the day after Christmas like mine. Because it's hard to get people to go on vacation for your birthday.
I would go on vacation for your birthday. No, it's the first week, May 1st. So it's about that time where we got to squeeze it in before the chaos. But I do think, that's the beauty of goal setting. And then, Matt, I'm coming to you for your personal goals for the year. Is things come up that you haven't thought about. It's really just a time of reflection that many of us high performers do not take that time for reflection and thinking about what's important to us. And I also think, all of us here, well, we women here, Matt will hear from you, have this issue of setting goals too high. Honestly, most of the women on my mastermind, I feel undercut their goals. So what I'm doing as a coach is often challenging them, hey, can we bump this up? But because they bump it up, they then find creative ways to reach that goal, right? Like creating passive income or doing something different. So I just think, there's so much value to goal setting, be it reflection, be it creative thinking, etc. And I do, to Matt's point, even if you're a solopreneur, either get a coach or get another friend who's a solopreneur, get someone else that you can goal set together so that you're having these conversations. I just think there's so much value in the conversation. So Matt, you're shaking your head. I'll let you speak to that. And then we want to hear from you and to be clear, we all have business goals. This is just personally what we're focusing on as well. So Matt, how about you?
Yeah, in general, going back to your question about, it is great to pair up with somebody and set goals, especially other solopreneurs. They're probably more into it. I think it'd be hard to get your best friend to be like, hey, let's pair up, unless you're going to do, hey, let's sign up this summer for some fun race, walk, whatever it might be. And I've seen the benefit out of that for sure, where you're teaming up but for I know when I first started coaching, I definitely was teaming up with other fellow coaches who were newbies like me, trying to figure out what the next 90 days needs to look like, what's possible to get done this year, and then leaning into people that had more experience. But that helped a tremendous amount just to talk it through, because when you first start, it's the loneliest time because you have the most time. Because when you're trying to launch something, you got more time than you want. And then when you get super busy, you go, remember those days when I had all that time? And so right? And so I wish I had a little less fear at that time and a little bit more focused action as we try to discover by what means are we going to get to where we want to go. And so that's, I think, because I partnered up with a Sandler sales trainer who was a friend of mine in town, and so, he's a really good guy, and we talked things through, and it was just helpful. It was just super helpful. And then personally, that's the reason I mentioned the story before of the calendar. It's just this is a journey to get here. It isn't I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, say to my wife, let's put the calendar on the wall and plan our year.
Oh, for sure.
No, this is years in the making to get there. right? Like to actually get it, like, we did some baby steps over the few years, and then now it's like, okay, now I realize why. Because it's so much easier to block out a date in October when you're sitting there in December of the previous year, because it's just tons of open space. But if you try to do it a month out, like, what? There's no space, because there's something always there that populates the calendar. And so for me, it's just us spending more. My wife and I are newly empty nesters, and so we're discovering our lives together that way and what that looks like. And so the travel piece is a big part of our goal for you.
I love that. And, to Lindsay's point, she got in a pickle where it was too late to plan vacations. I mean, everybody's freaking traveling now, especially if you're traveling at high times. Because I do like to kind of last minute plan my trips. And you can really get stuck. Either you're paying way more than you want to, or it's just not available, or you're not having the vacation you want. So, unless you're willing to backpack it through Europe, which I kind of did in October, and risk if you have a place to sleep or not. Right. I did have places booked to sleep. So what I love to do on vacation, because I like to kind of do what I want, I like to make dinner reservations and make sure I have a place to sleep. Like, that's my planning, because I can always choose not to honor the dinner reservations, but sometimes you get somewhere and there's nowhere to eat if you haven't planned it ahead of time. So those are my two things I like to plan for vacations.
If I may throw out there real quick, April, one thing
Please.
that was nice about having calendars with targeted areas we're going, you could really watch the airfares, because it's super expensive, like you're saying, to do it last minute. But I was really able to do a lot of planning, knowing that I'm going to be in XYZ place at this time, and I could kind of watch it. I knew what a high rate was, and I knew what a lower rate was, and when to buy. And usually it was 60 days out was usually the best, unless there was some sort of sale going up. And it worked out pretty well. I mean, even my flight to go see you, April, in Nashville, we're doing our annual planning. I knew ahead of time. I was able to target it, and I found, and that's a real crazy time to travel the week of Thanksgiving, and I still got it done pretty reasonably. So.
Yeah, I love this. And if you're listening and you have a family, all the more reason. When you have to buy 4 airline tickets versus 1, it becomes so much more important. And I know how expensive hotels are right now. I mean, because I'm such a high level with Marriott, we now get membership rates where it's half the price.
Wow.
But you have to book in advance. Yeah, that's when we were in Santa Monica. That's why I stayed at the Ritz-Carlton instead of the Marriott, because the Ritz was cheaper for me because of my members rate, because I booked ahead of time, right? I would have never stayed there if I were paying full rate. So there is some fun in planning ahead, because you get to do some things that you wouldn't normally do. And get to explore and spend time.
I have to get that into my head. Like for such a freedom-focused person, I think there's a mindset shift of looking for evidence that structure and planning actually gives you the freedom that you want, rather than steals it from you.
Yeah.
I feel like that will be a project of mine.
And for sure, and also, but April and I are not natural planners. We actually like tremendous freedom. But having this bit of planning in this part of our lives actually creates the freedom that we're looking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I agree, because you're not scrambling. When you have this planned, you're doing this, you can be fully present. Because also, as we all know, the funny thing is, Megan, I think people like you and I, Matt and Lindsay, I think you're similar to us too. I just have had these conversations more. We want freedom and we want to do what we want. And so I think that makes us hesitate to plan, but then we get stuck with limited options because we haven't planned. So what I learned is by planning, I actually get more of what I want, and I actually get more freedom. So yes, I'm with you. There has to be reward to, I really do view planning as a risk, because I'm like, well, what if this comes up and I want to do this, right? So there needs to be a reward to the risk, and you need to see a positive outcome. I agree. So I'm going to challenge you. I'll hold you accountable, Megan. Lindsay, we're going to hold you accountable to plan the family vacation this summer, right? I'll put you in touch with my best friend, Sarah. She already has oh, I don't know if I can say this. I don't think her husband listens. She hasn't told him yet, but she already has their vacation completely booked for next year, which she did this year. And they got to take the whole family on an Alaskan cruise, including both their mothers, which again, you're doing that last minute. You can't afford to do that for your family in today's world. So, I know I'm always like, you already have your vacation booked? It like boggles my mind, but I'm also not booking for like 4 or 6 people. That's a major difference.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, what is one piece of advice that you will share with our listeners, as we're exiting? And remember, this is the end of the year. So either something for the new year, goal setting, or actually, why don't we all share a lesson that we learned this year? If we can think about that. And if you'll need a second, I'll go first. Are you ready, Megan? You look ready.
I'll go, and I guess I'll hit on the theme that I clearly is a theme for me that keeps coming up is if you find yourself having resistance to setting goals or doing things, is to take a step back and go under the hood and really explore where that resistance is coming from. You know, I know we've discussed maybe it's because of our desire for freedom, or, you know, sometimes with you know, in business or with my clients looking to make a big change, it might be that you're scared of setting a goal because you're scared of not meeting it, and that fear of failure and avoidance. So just being compassionate with yourself and letting yourself sort of explore what else might be at play if you're struggling with the goals.
I love it. Lindsay?
So for me, I feel like talking about the courage to take action is something I want to share as somebody who just moved into my own new coaching business this year and was literally encouraged to do this in 2015. It's going to be 2024, by the way. And I just did this in 2023. And, you know, I had this amazing method with Facebook groups that was part of my first original business. And I was encouraged to like share that with the world to help others, because they're very effective. If you understand how to really use them, you know, they can become a goldmine for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I want to say is like, if you have something, and you're not taking the action on it, I want to encourage you to do that.
I love it. Thank you. And set a deadline for your action. I mean, It can be loose, but, you know, there's power to doing that. I know when we launched this podcast, I said, all right, first episode's August 17th. Let's make it happen, right? And like, even my production company was like, April, can we push it back a weekend? I was like, nope, it's coming out August 17th or it's never. Cause same thing. I had waited a year to start the podcast. I'd been wanting to do it for a year, and I was like, if I don't do this, who knows, you know, when this is going to happen. So I think it's happened to all of us. We've wanted to do something for years, and remember that thing you're desiring to do is taking up space in your head, right? It's renting space in your head and your heart. So I love that courage to take action. Thank you for that. And Matt, how about you? What's a lesson you learned this year?
The lesson I learned is like how far you can come in goal setting. And what I mean is like, when I first started jogging again, I could barely run 2 miles. I mean, barely. I had to stop, I'd walk, and I'd find the quietest street to walk on and nobody would see me. And I started running on the busiest street again. And I'd totally, you know, get done. And then now I'm able, you know, and now I was able to do a half marathon. And so for me, that's a big jump. Now, it wasn't 1 year, but it was just because of how my goal setting kind of increased over the years of what I wanted. And I don't think I would ever imagine myself doing that. Like, I didn't know I could be capable of doing that, you know. And so those are the lessons I have. It's really how far you can go when you get the habits instilled.
I love it. One of my biggest lessons learned this year, and Matt, I just shared it with you in our annual, was, you know, I started a new business. I put a lot of money into this new business, and sometimes when you're investing in a new business, it can be painful, let's just say. And so what I really liked is looking back, because there were some things I invested money in that didn't work for us, and we had to pivot a number of times this year. But when we were in our annual planning meeting and looking back, I did not have one single regret for any of those choices. So like really thinking of that money as tuition for lessons learned and investment in the future. And it's crazy because when my mindset shifted, a whole group came to me of 20 people who wanted coaching on exactly the lessons I just paid for this year, right? So not only did I learn them, but I can impact these 20 people's lives and make a huge difference. So, just remember the perspective you're coming from. Don't beat yourself up because other people are telling you should, because if you tell someone else how much money you're spending in your business or things you're doing, someone else could think it's absolutely crazy. But just remember, if you have a purpose, like trust your heart, trust your intuition, do your planning, make smart decisions, and just trust that it's all being done for a reason. So I'm super excited. I could chat with you all day long. I will share this. If you know me, you know I'm a very future-forward person, but I have been in planning sessions since Thanksgiving, and it's about to be Christmas. So I am actually burned out on planning, and I am going to fully enjoy the holidays and not think about the future for a couple of days and then be back to it. So, Megan, what are you doing or not doing over the holidays this year? What's something you wanna let go of during this time?
I'm not doing much. After that. I was thinking about this yesterday. I had a pile of things I was going to do for the rest of the week, but there's no real reason to do them. And I think I need a little catching my breath. And so I am fully taking 2 weeks off and enjoying being in sunny California because it's nice here and you can be on a staycation quite happily. I'm going to Mexico for a few days. So really just trying to unplug, because especially, I'm sure as we all know, when I had a job, I was very good at boundary setting and unplugging. Now that I work for myself, it gets a lot mushier. And so I'm going to try and really give myself space to, rejuvenate.
I love that. Matt, how about you?
After this week, I'm unplugging. The only way I need to recharge, I'm like you, April, been in meetings, plannings for, since we were together. And so I absolutely just have to do as little as possible through Christmas, and then we as a family go down to Phoenix for a few days, and that'll be some nice to get some sun. And it'll be not warm, but sun's fine, and we'll come home. So it'll be good.
I love it. And Lindsay?
Well, it's warm in Phoenix, so it's all good.
Awesome.
Very tank top still. I was out in the sun by my pool earlier. I also plan I have tomorrow is a very busy day, and then I am going to rest as much as I can as well over the next week through the new year. I've got family coming to Arizona, and having added on this new business this year has been quite the work. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to just resting and getting excited for coming back in the new year.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, I have a busy day tomorrow too, and then I am on holiday for a good 2 weeks. And to the degree of how we just talked about how the whole calendar's planned, well, I can tell you I just canceled my plane ticket to Houston because I'm going to drive, because I want such a loosey-goosey schedule for 2 weeks that I'm like, I'm going to go when I want and I'm going to come home when I want. So I'm going to enjoy this time of like no schedule so I can get back to my schedule. So everyone, have an amazing holiday. Happy New Year. You're listening to this as we're going into 2024. So, wake up on January 1st and think about the things you love most in your life and make sure you make time for them. And as I always say, the world needs more love. So look forward to that day and think how you can enter the world and bring more love. I hope that everyone has an amazing evening, an amazing week, and a phenomenal 2024. I can't wait to hear what you all have going on. Have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon.